Hey there folks, last week Pokemon Generation 9 was announced. Later this year we'll have the chance to play Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet, and the vast majority of fans agree that these are Spanish and possibly Portuguese inspired games. With this news of course comes speculation, which I just love. So in this video I'm going to guess what secondary types the final evolutions of Sprigatito, Fuecoco, and Quaxly will be. I'll also share some general thoughts on the starters and guess the names and themes of the final evolutions. I do envision them all having two types, because in Gen 8 every starter's final evolution is monotyped, and I don't think Game Freak would do that in back-to-back generations. I also don't think that they would mix monotypes with dual types. They haven't done that since Gen 5, and I don't think it's likely that we'll ever see that again. Doing all or none is more interesting and more organized. You might say, well, didn't they just give us free dual-type starter evolutions in Legends Arceus? And that's fair, but that was more of Game Freak reimagining classic sketches than giving us completely new ones. Now let's talk about Fuecoco. This is instantly my favorite Gen 9 starter, and I will likely pick it on my first playthrough. After 8 generations, the Chinese Zodiac theory is no more. Maybe it was true at one time, but now Game Freak has decided against it, I don't know. In the trailer, it has green hair, feather things, but they're glowing yellowish orange in other images. My guess is that they're bioluminescent and they glow yellow. I was hoping that we'd get a 4-legged fire starter, but I'm so pleased with Fuecoco that I don't care. Fuecoco is the Fire Croc Pokemon. Many fans have noted that this sketch resembles a pepper or a cocoa bean. The cocoa bean comparison works particularly well because of the name Fuecoco. You'd think Coco is just to represent the croc part of its appearance, but maybe it has a double meaning. So I'm fairly certain of exactly what Fuecoco is supposed to be, and I'm really not sure why more people haven't connected these dots, so here it is. Fuecoco looks like a cocoa bean, and it's the fire starter, in a Spanish and or Portuguese inspired game. The idea here is that Fuecoco is hot cocoa, which is an extremely commonplace drink in Spain. So yes, Fuecoco is hot cocoa. Notice how the sketch resembles a mug and the white skull is kind of like foam? With that in mind, let's try to determine the final evolution secondary type. Many were quick to say, oh, a croc, it'll be the first dragon starter. While that is a possibility, I believe the croc thing is just a misdirect. One could make the case that the chocolate and croc ideas are inspired by Chocodiles, and tie that to the dragon type, but I think that the croc thing is just to give the sketch an animal likeness, since starters always have animal attributes, and choosing a crocodile here may be inspired by Chocodiles, but I don't think that it will factor into its secondary type. The hot cocoa theme is going to be drawn out more in its evolutions, and there's really only one secondary type that could fit that bill, the fairy type. Since the fairy type's birth in Gen 6, it has been prominently featured in games. There are several fairy type legendaries, and in Gen 7, Primarina is water fairy type. I expect Fuecoco to become the series' first fire and fairy type, which I think is a really cool typing. As for the final evolution's appearance, I think it'll encompass relatively the same idea as Fuecoco, but bigger and more detailed. Perhaps its mouth will be constantly foamed up, like a hungry croc, or a mug of hot chocolate. As for the name, I'm thinking something like Crocoada, which is me attempting to combine the words crocodile, chocolate, and the Spanish word for fairy, hada. We'll see, but I feel pretty good about this one. I'm not getting on the dragon train. Next, let's talk about Quaxly. A lot of fans have been hard on Quaxly, and I agree with some of the criticism. If you simply showed someone the sketch with no context, they wouldn't know it was a Pokemon. It lacks the level of uniformity that most Pokemon have, which isolates it. I think most of that is due to the eyes. This mono-eye thing looks so atypical for a Pokemon, let alone a starter, to the point where it ends up not even looking like a Pokemon. Also, the colors aren't balanced well. The beak stands out as the only yellow thing. There are two ways to reconcile that. Firstly, they could simply make the beak the same blue as the feet and hat, but that wouldn't be enough color, especially standing next to Fuecoco, which showcases a lot of color. Second, they could add some yellow features to the white areas, maybe on the wings or something on its chest. Overall, Quaxly needs more characterization. It's a duck wearing a hat that doesn't capture the magic that most Pokemon do. Also, it looks way too much like a famous cartoon duck owned by a certain entertainment juggernaut that I will decline to name. So what secondary type will Quaxly's final evolution gain? Since it has wings, it's easy to say, oh, it will be a water flying type. However, I think the wings are a misdirect. When I say the word duck, do you imagine a duck in the sky or a duck in the water? The vast majority of you will say in the water. Plenty of winged Pokemon aren't flying types, so maybe Quaxly isn't either. I have a guess that I feel pretty good about. The only thing that characterizes Quaxly is the hat, so that will be the thing that gets embellished more in its evolutions. What prominent things in Spanish history and culture might be the inspiration here? There's bullfighters, however I think that would make more sense as an early gym leader. Side prediction, the first gym leader, or whatever it's called in Scarlet and Violet, will be a bullfighter-inspired fighting type user, whose signature Pokemon is a fighting bull-looking Pokemon with the sheer force ability. Now back to Quaxly's hat. I think the inspiration here is conquistadors, and there are 4 secondary types that work with that. Steel, Fighting, Dark, and Poison. Conquistadors carry swords, which are typically made of steel. However, I'm not leaning on Steel because that's been done before in Empoleon. Now let's make the case for Dark or Poison. Many conquistadors did evil things, which could be metaphorically seen as poison or darkness. Lastly, Quaxly's final evolution could be a water and fighting type. Conquistadors did a lot of fighting. It makes sense with the conquistador theme and has been used with starters many times before, so it could very well be back. So I'm going with the fighting type as my guess here. As for Quaxly's final evolution's name, I've got a guess here I'm quite proud of, Quaxlistador. Now let's talk about Sprigatito. Good to see something new. There's never been a feline grass type. It could use a bit more detail, maybe this darker green could be used to draw some spots or stripes. Also, it looks a bit too much like a real cat. Pokemon are creative adaptations of real things, and Sprigatito falls short of capturing that magic that Pokemon usually have. So it could do with some adjustments to characterize it more. Some more shaping to the face would help, maybe embellish the whiskers a bit more. Based on the feline appearance and Gatito literally meaning small cat or kitten, it seems like we're going in that direction with the final evolution's type. Looking at an average cat, what Pokemon types do you think of? Perhaps Dark, Ghost, Fairy, Fighting, or Normal? However, my guess here is based on what I think Sprigatito's final evolution's theme will be and the process of elimination. Based on the feline appearance, I'm envisioning Sprigatito's final evolution being a very Puss in Boots inspired Pokemon. It'll be the Spanish Pistachio Sly Cat character. I have a name I like for this one too, Sprigatigre, which is Sprigatito plus Tiger. So the Dark type would work well with that concept. However, it doesn't round out the starter trio well at all. It makes Crocoada overpowered. So I'm going with another fitting type that rounds out this trio perfectly, the Steel type. After all, Puss in Boots does carry a steel sword. So here are my predictions for the types, names, and themes for the final evolutions of Fuecoco, Quaxly, and Sprigatito. Crocoada, a fire and fairy type that looks like a crocodile ate a giant mug and foams at the mouth. Quaxlistador, a conquistador-inspired water and fighting type, and Sprigatigre, a grass and steel type inspired by Puss in Boots sorts of characters, possibly showcasing a prominent mustache. And I do really like the trio that I've projected here. It has the traditional grass beats water, water beats fire, fire beats grass circle, but also this reverse circle, which really adds up nicely. I'm sure we'll find out if any of these are right soon enough. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, and share if you enjoyed this video, and I'll be sure to make more like it.